Good evening, everybody. For those that don't know me, I'm Jamie Farr. I'm the superintendent here in the Canandaigua City School District. Thanks for joining us this evening for this webinar. It's new to us, but we are learning as we go. Got a little fancy tonight. I had some music playing as a lot of you entered, so I really stepped up my game and by adding the music there. I see we have a few hundred folks there following us. Hopefully, I'm able to share some information that you find valuable. The first probably 20 minutes or so, I will share a slide deck that you actually saw. I just stopped sharing it, but I'll share it again. That'll go through and really just kind of let everybody know what the state of the state is here in the Canandaigua City School District and regionally, and a little bit at the state level. And then at the end, you'll see at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A tab. Just kind of hold on to your questions until the end. And then I promise to do a hard stop after 1 hour. And so I'll get through as many questions as I can in 1 hour. We did a test run of this earlier today at 1 o'clock with our faculty and staff. Learned a few things. Number one, that I had a limit to the number of participants. So a lot of people were shut out of that because I could only have 100 at that time. We've increased that level of participation here tonight, and we have far more than that. And so we do have some staff on this webinar this evening, and some community members, and some parents and some students, which is great. And so we will work through the slide, and at the end, like I said, we'll have some question and answer. So I am going to go back to sharing the slide. I also wanted, actually, before I do that, to preface it by saying you're going to see me occasionally checking out my cell phone. It's not because I'm disinterested. It's really because I have a few folks on my team that are listening in and letting me know that everything came through clearly. And if there's something where there's a technology glitch where maybe you couldn't hear something I was saying, they're going to text me and then I can repeat what I was saying. We just want to make sure we're as clear as possible as we go through this. And so, and I'll also be checking to make sure that I'm staying on time as well. So, and trying to respect everybody's time. But I hope you're all well. I can tell you that as a staff, we miss our students and the families in the community tremendously. And this has been a really, really challenging time for all of us, including you. I know that. And so hopefully, like I said, I could share some important information that you will find beneficial. So let me start with the slideshow here. Hopefully everybody can see the screen. And if you can't, I'm sure I'll start getting texts from those folks that are helping me out there that you can't. But like I said earlier today, we actually did this with the staff. Now this is for the community, but there's staff involved as well. And you know, we're glad everybody could join us. So let's just jump right in here. The first thing and most important thing in our opinion is we need to work to flatten the curve. I think if you're watching the news, if you're on social media, you're seeing this image over and over again. The premise behind it is if we can follow precautionary and preventative measures, stay home if we can, you know, having social distancing, making sure that you're washing your hands, and call a doctor if you're ill. Right now, what's happening is the demand for our healthcare system is actually more than they can handle, more than their capacity across New York State. But if we can practice the preventative measures over the time period of 14 days, that curve really flattens out, and then the healthcare system can manage it. If you're watching any of Governor Cuomo's press conferences, you're seeing that a lot of our hospitals are being taxed to the point where they're looking at opening up, and they have started opening up satellite hospitals and hotels and college dorm rooms and things like that. And so the first order of business is preventative measures help to flatten the curve. The second thing kind of goes along with that. This is actually talking about social distancing. And we know it's difficult. You have neighbors, you have friends, your children want to play with their friends, and it's really easy to you know, kind of fall into the normal operation and let that happen. But as you can see in this image, it talks about the spread of COVID-19. But if one person worked from home and another didn't go to a barbecue and another stayed home and another didn't fly domestically, you can see how those numbers and those projections change over time. And it really helps to minimize the impact that COVID-19 is having on our society. And so really asking people to do their very best to do their part. In talking with the Department of Health, that doesn't mean you can't go outside and go for a walk with your family, or get some fresh air, or ride a bike. Those things are encouraged, but keep a distance from others, I guess, is the big key there. And so you'll see that on our social media feed, as well as other things trying to promote social distancing. As of yesterday, actually, as of today, these numbers were updated. So this is a little more updated from the 1 o'clock session we did. In Ontario County, there's 14 confirmed cases, 3 of which are hospitalized. There's 1 new one today. So earlier, the folks saw that there was 13. It's actually gone up to 14. There was 1 new one in our county today. What the Department of Health is doing now is they're not really talking too much about the individual case any longer. They're really just projecting the number. They're doing that for a few reasons. One is they don't want different townships to have a false sense of safety and security and think that because nobody's tested positive in their town that they're safe to go about business as usual, because that's not the case. The reality is they're not testing everybody. Some people may be showing these signs and symptoms, but they're really only testing the people who have compromised immune systems, that are a little bit older, usually between usually around 60 or older with a compromised immune system or in poor health. Those are the candidates that they're testing. Otherwise, if you're in relatively good health, they're not testing. So the reality is, the numbers are likely higher. They're just only testing certain folks. So just keep that in mind. They're really just telling the overall number here in Ontario County. There has been 169 tests given, or I should say a little more than that, 183. 169 were negative, 14 were positive tests in our county. The Department of Health is sharing that they have a large need for thermometers. And so if you work in any kind of entity where you have access to thermometers, reach out to the Department of Health and find out how you might be willing or able to donate those. I'm sure they would greatly appreciate it. The state is tracking travel through a variety of means. And this is some positive news. Ontario County actually received an A rating. Our travel is down since this closure 41%, which is pretty significantly high compared to other counties and other areas. So folks seem to really be heeding the advice of staying home when possible. One of the things that is still happening here in our community, and a lot of you know this, is that restaurants are still offering pickup and delivery services. These restaurants, many of them have supported our schools and supported many programs throughout our community for years, year after year. And so if you have a means, we encourage you to support the local restaurants. And also kind of going along with that, you're going to see later on that we're providing lunches and breakfasts for students for free here Monday through Friday. One of the ideas a community member had was if people have the means and are interested in helping out, maybe something they could do could help in 2 ways. They could buy gift cards to these various restaurants that are still doing these services, the delivery and pickup, and donate them during our meal pickup at the primary school on Mondays through Friday from 11 to 1. And then we would collect those and then redistribute them out to the folks coming to pick up lunches and dinners, or lunches and breakfasts. So it does a few things. It helps maybe some families that are in need, that maybe are out of work. And it also supports these local restaurants. So stay tuned for information around that. We plan to give more information tomorrow in our Monday, Wednesday, Friday communication that goes out, a little bit more detail around that concept. And then we have a variety of different places offering virtual experiences. Today was a beautiful day and people could go outside, which was great, but it won't always be like that. And so what can you do with your families? Canandaigua, for example, is offering some virtual experiences. If you go on their website, Seneca Zoo, a variety of places are doing that. And so if you go on Ontario County website, you can look at the public health portion and find things there. You can look at attractions and find different virtual things happening. It's a great resource. I highly recommend you check it out. So let's get into a timeline of events. And this slide, it brought a lot of questions the last time. So I'd ask you to listen carefully because it can become a little confusing, and I'll try to go slow. But back on March 12th of 2020, Governor Cuomo had a press conference, and he talked about the COVID-19 outbreak. And he said with clarity that at that time, he was not going to close schools or businesses. It was going to be a local decision determined between business leaders, school leaders, and the Department of Health in that county or in that community. And so it was a local decision. 2 days later, we called a meeting with Department of Health and school superintendents to really talk about, what were the trends, what were the numbers looking like, what should we do? And it was at that time that we all decided it probably makes sense to declare a state of emergency and to close schools through April break. For us, it's April 13th. Some schools have the 13th off and we'll come back on the 14th, but for us, it was the 13th. And so that decision was made, and we put a lot of wheels in motion to prepare for that at that point forward, and so did all the schools in our county. On Monday, the 16th, Governor Cuomo had another press conference, and he actually reversed his decision and said he was going to supersede local decision, and he's going to close schools for 14 days beginning on March 18th. And so if you time that out from March 18th until 14 days later, it actually means a reopen on April 1st of 2020. Now, I say that, I also say that I think it's highly unlikely that we'll actually reopen on April 1st, but we've had no further word from the governor's office. And if the governor stays with that April 1st deadline that we reopen, we'll be forced with making some difficult decisions. During the 14-day closure that he issued, he did offer us leniency around the required 180 days, that those 14 days wouldn't count against us, but anything beyond the governor's order, that it could count against us. And so we have to be cautious about that and try to figure out what that means for districts. So even today, Governor Cuomo had a press conference, and he was asked about this April 1st reentry, and his staff just indicated that they're looking at that no decision had been made. And so April 1st it's fast approaching. And so what we're asking the governor's office to do is to really offer us some guidance around this. What really will happen? If I was a betting person, which I'm not, I would imagine it would be extended. But he did, after being asked about that April 1st deadline, went on to talk about just kind of the state's reaction to COVID-19 and how we closed everything across the state. And he even mentioned, was it the right move to close everything? That perhaps we didn't need to close, or didn't need to make folks stay home who are younger. And so maybe the younger workforce could have stayed working. He also mentioned that maybe those who have had COVID-19 and recovered could return to the workforce. These are just things I think that are going through his head and that he's trying to sort out with his team. And of course, it has direct implications on us. But, we locally said April 13th, but the governor has come in and overruled and said April 1st. We hope to have further information on that any day now. Every day we're looking for further information, whether or not he's going to extend that. But, please stay tuned with that. Let's talk about kind of technology and remote learning. Our students K-12 all took home devices with them. We understand there's a lot that goes along with that. The original guidance document from the state education department said during closure, this initial closure, focus on access to instruction, access to education, which really meant, right from them, is that was reviewing content already taught and offering opportunity for practice. And that's really what our staff leveraged to do. They put together a lot of materials, whether it was hard copy, because it was available for everybody if they didn't have internet access as a hard copy, and a lot of it was loaded onto Schoology and different platforms like that. If this closure is extended, though, as you saw in my communication on Wednesday for staff and for the community, we really need to start thinking about, if it's extended, how do we move content forward? How do we start teaching new content? And it could be through Zoom sessions like this, a little more interactive than a webinar, but just a standard Zoom session, or it could be just through Schoology or through email. There's a variety of methods, and whatever works best, but that we'll learn that through the process. We do understand that internet speed is kind of choppy and slow for all of us. It's not just a Canandaigua thing. This is really a global thing. Everybody's being forced to a virtual online kind of an existence, and I think it's testing capacity. And so that's one piece. We have a couple ideas how we might be able to help with our own internet speed for our folks, and we're talking about that right now. But so the point behind that is just understand, we know you're frustrated when maybe Schoology locks up or the internet locks up and you have to restart, or it just it stops and goes. We understand. Just do your best. The most important thing right now is your health and your well-being. Academics is important, so just do your best, but the most important thing is your health and well-being. We've been able to run some analytics on Schoology, which has actually been surprising, a nice surprise. Since closure, we see that overall district-wide 90% of our students have been able to log into Schoology, which leads us to believe that perhaps 90% or so has internet access at home. And then if you look at the secondary level where most of the work is going through Schoology, we're up to 95% have signed in. It doesn't mean that they're engaging in the work per se, and we're working on kind of a process to tackle that concept and that issue, but it appears as though a large number of our folks have internet access. We do have some mobile hotspots for families that might need internet access, so please direct them to email me if that's the case, and we can try to coordinate that. We don't have a lot of them, but we do have some, and we would certainly purchase more if we knew the demand was there and we knew we were going to be out longer. Another way, it's not ideal, and it certainly isn't the best, but it's an option if folks want to do it. At Braves Field down by the stadium in the parking lot, we have really strong wireless reception, and so you could connect to our network just by parking there and doing work down there. Again, it's not ideal, but if it's an option, if somebody wanted to explore that option. For our staff who might need IT help, fill out a help desk ticket. And for anybody, parents, students, you'll see at the bottom of the screen there's an email, the portal help@canandaiguaschools.org. Send them an email, and they'll help you out. Number two, I didn't really talk about number two on this slide, the Chromebook repair. We've had some emails and connections from people in the community, staff and students, that they're having Chromebook issues. Our IT, they're working around the clock. They're working so hard and they're doing a great job trying to keep up with everything. And they've been able to fix a number of those issues just by being on the phone with you or emailing with you, and that's great. We have to be kind of smart and efficient about this. So if, for example, your charger isn't working, but you have a sibling who also has a charger, we'd ask you to share. If your Chromebook's not working, but you have a sibling with a Chromebook, and we would prefer that you share in that case, if you can. We do have a limited supply of kind of loaners that I would actually exchange here. So if going through the portal help@canandaiguaschools.org doesn't work and they can't fix it for you, then you would reach out to me and we would schedule a time here at district office and I would exchange a loaner for the one you have. But we're a little worried about giving them out to everybody, especially if we can be efficient and we can share in certain households if you have multiple devices, simply because we don't know if we can order and get parts to repair, and we'll run out of those loaners quickly if we're not careful and cautious about that. I think I talked about pretty much everything on that slide I was hoping for, so let's move on. Meal distribution, again, weekdays, Monday through Friday between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. It's actually at the primary side link entrance. We operate out of the primary kitchen, but it's for all students, UPK-12. All students, whether you qualify for free reduced lunch or not, it's free for everybody. This is a governmental subsidized program. So, and we will be serving these meals over spring break as well. We've hovered around 150 to 230 meals per day. Actually double that, because what we do is we hand out a lunch for that day and a breakfast for the next day. And it's a car side service, so you don't have to come in, you just pull up. We have folks that are volunteering to help. They'll walk up to your window, they'll ask how many students you have in the district. You don't have to prove it, you just say how many you have, and they hand you that many lunches and breakfast. So we really want to help the community wherever we can and make sure that people are being fed. But that program, again, is up and running, and please take advantage of it. We do have limited delivery as well. We know that some people, it's hard for them to get out and they need delivery. And so on our website, you can see the number to call. On the COVID-19 page, you can see the number to call if you need to schedule a delivery. Mental health, this is something that I think you'll see over and over again. This is something we're incredibly concerned about, knowing that a lot of people are staying home, they're socially distancing themselves. It can be rather lonely. And so the top line on this slide, Mr. Lefebvre, this one's for students. So students or parents or guardians of students, if you feel like your child could use a connection with a school counselor, psychologist, social worker, prevention specialist, call that number. Mr. Lefebvre will answer it, and he will connect you or your child with the counselor or the person that they're accustomed to working with. And so that's a number to connect there. The rest of the resources are actually all things for adults or children or students. So They're available for everybody. And then the last one, actually, the EAP program is available for staff. They're all mental health services, and I know there's other services out there. In fact, we had a local community service email me today just saying, hey, we're offering teletherapy. Can you add it to your resources as well? And so you'll find that's over on our website. We have a health-related link. If you scroll down, you'll see all kinds of information and resources. So please take advantage of our website. There's a lot of resources there. Emergency childcare. So we had to submit a number of things to the state when the closure occurred. This was one of them, in fact. And so we partnered with the YMCA to provide emergency childcare for, the preference goes to first responders and folks working in the healthcare industry. And so any child that is going to this emergency childcare service program, they do need to have their temperatures checked to make sure they're healthy before they can come in. And it's really well run. It's nowhere near capacity, so there's space if folks could benefit from this. And then I would also add to that, it's also for families in need that maybe they work at a grocery store and that's still running, and so they have to go to work. You're part of the essential operations, and the program is for you as well. So the number listed, you can call the YMCA and learn more about that, but they've been a great partner to get this off the ground. We really appreciate that. Scheduled events. I've had a lot of questions about scheduled events. So I can tell you that we just learned a few days ago that winter championships have officially been canceled at the state level. So they were holding off, hoping that they could finish state championships, but it's just getting so late now in the year that they have decided to cancel those. Spring sports is postponed at this point. We hope we can salvage some of the season. I do know April 27th, the New York State Athletic Association is getting together to talk about the New York State Championships for spring sports. So their decision date, I believe, last I knew off the top of my head, was April 27th. They'll decide whether there'll be a spring state championship. The ADs and different folks from Section 5 are meeting regularly to talk about what of the spring sports we could postpone and salvage. It really is all dependent and contingent upon a few things, when we return to school and when it's safe to gather in large groups. That kind of goes along with extracurricular activities too. I know our theater program had had the opportunity for both casts to do a soft opening with just family and friends. So it was nice for them to perform in front of a small crowd. We're hopeful that we'll be able to do the musical upon return. Depending on when we return, we're hoping we'll be able to pick right back up where we left off. Same with some of the concerts have been canceled. Some are postponed. Some may just be reconfigured in a whole new concept. So stay tuned. We certainly want to provide these opportunities for students and to make sure they get to really partake in things they're passionate about and they just love. And so it's really about the kids, and we need to find a way to try to give that to them if we can. People are asking about upcoming events. You know, I'm hearing about the ball or the prom or graduation, the commencement ceremony, hearing about all these different events. And, you know, all I can tell you right now is those things are up in the air. We don't know. Again, it's contingent upon when we return and when it's safe to gather in larger groups again. If for some reason some of these things are canceled, we will work incredibly hard and will involve a variety of stakeholders to try to determine how can we do these things in a meaningful way and really celebrate all of your accomplishments. So, you know, just stay tuned on all of that. And then number 4, our budget vote, our board elections. We hope to go out to the community with a potential capital project in May. Right now, that plan stays. We are hearing grumblings from the state level that maybe they'll push those dates back a little bit, but that's actually quite concerning because school operates, their new budget year starts July 1st. It's not like most businesses, which is January 1st. And so, you know, there's a lot of issues that could arise if it's pushed back too far. But right now, as far as we know, the elections and everything is still moving forward for that May date. But please stay tuned and we'll let you know if anything changes. The capital project piece, you know, a significant amount of work needs to be done around our schools, and it's really specific to our building condition survey. So by law, we're required to have an independent firm come in and evaluate our facilities and then tell us what needs to be addressed and taken care of. that list of items are incredibly long. None of it's glamorous. It's boilers. Pretty much every boiler across the district is beyond life expectancy, well beyond life expectancy. For those of you who drive around, for example, at the Academy parking lot or the middle school bus drop-off, you know those lots are deteriorating fast. And so those things like that need to be addressed. Some bathrooms at the primary elementary school and middle school need to be reconfigured and made ADA compliant. But what we hope to do is actually make some videos, some informational videos, and share them with the community on our website in a variety of different formats, social media, so people understand the work that needs to get done. Again, none of it's glamorous, but it's stuff that really needs to be taken care of. Otherwise, our assets are just really, they're going to be in pretty deplorable conditions over time. They're just older structures. And our custodial maintenance grounds folks, they do fantastic work. But our buildings are old and they need to be kept up. So stay tuned for information around that. Moving forward, so one of the things we're trying to be mindful not to do is add new products to the mix, because that could just confuse things. However, one of the things that we're looking at, perhaps using more for staff, it'll be optional if they want to do it or not. And of course, it's for the community and students as well. But it's something we've been piloting called Brave Square. The product's actually called Parent Square. We personalized it to Brave Square. You can access it in the App Store, the Apple App Store, or in the Google Play Store. And you'll see our logo is right there. You can download it. It's a free app. And I know some people have been experimenting with it a little bit just to kind of give us feedback how it works. So I know Greg Kane in the music program was using it for the Nashville trip. That's since been canceled. Pam Welch for Ski Club. There's just been a variety of people that have been experimenting with it. Dan Bowman with robotics. And there's just been a few others. So the feedback is that it's really easy to use. It has a lot of features that none of our other programs have. This is not a replacement for Schoology. Schoology is still something we'll use, as well as Google Docs. This is really a communication platform that it has a lot of promise. So the reason I say this is if you would, and if you have a smartphone, go ahead and download it. I think you're going to see more and more staff using it, and you'll start seeing communication coming through it. For staff, we're actually going to start offering virtual professional development if you're interested in doing this, probably as early as next week. And so be on the lookout for this. This product, I think, is going to do a lot of great things for us. I just wanted to make you aware of that. And then, so really that's about it. I just want to thank you. You know, it's said over and over again that a crisis really shows the true character of people. And this community has really rallied around the cause of looking out for one another, making sure people are cared for, supporting each other, staying positive when I know it's sometimes that's difficult during this time and this time of uncertainty. But really between the staff, just going way above and beyond, the community, you doing the same, I couldn't be more proud and inspired by your efforts. So thank you, thank you, thank you. At this time, in a second here, I'm going to unshare this slideshow I've been talking through. And then at the bottom of your screen, you should see a Q&A section, and you can just click on that and start asking questions. And like I said, I promised I'd only go an hour, so it leaves us 32 minutes for me to answer as many questions as I possibly can, and I will try to get through all of them. So let me stop sharing this because it helps me kind of see my screen a little bit better. Okay, I see some questions are already popping up. The first question is around homework and kids not being able to upload their homework that's been assigned to them. Our staff, they know right now actually that we're not grading on the work being done at this time. That actually could shift, especially if the closure goes longer than this April 13th that we've decided locally, and certainly the April 1st that the governor has decided. Because we'll have to make that shift based on what we believe will be the next guidance from SED, the State Education Department, that we need to start moving content forward and teaching new content. And so once that happens, we have to figure out how to grade. A few things are being talked about. Do we move during this time of closure to a pass-fail concept? Let's say, for example, we return in the middle of May or June. Do we look at a combination between the grades accrued from the time we returned to the end of the year, plus the grades that we did at the beginning of the year, first quarter, second quarter, up until closure, because I think we actually got halfway through the third quarter. So do we do something statistically with those grades to create a grade? But right now, the staff knows we're not expecting the work that the students are doing to be graded. We are expecting the kids to do it, but we don't want to have there be some inequities because some students may not have internet yet at home, or there might be other barriers at home that we need to help remove so that it's a fair reflection of what they know. And so right now, we ask that folks do their work. Some teachers will ask students to bring it back with them when we do return. So that's part of your questions. What if school returns? What happens then? Some staff will ask them to bring their work back. So don't throw anything away. Hang on to it all. And then we'll have to make some decisions as we move on. But some of those decisions can't be made until we know what the governor is doing. Okay. So I'm seeing a question regarding students with IEPs, so they have special education needs. They have maybe related services, OT, PT, speech, things like that. Where are we with that? And so really where we're at with that, to be honest with you, is we're positioning ourselves to move forward with either telephone services, Zoom services such as this where possible. And if it doesn't work for families and parents, they have an option to either do it over the phone or over Zoom, or to have it extended into the summer months, the services that they were owed. This is actually guidance that's coming down from the state and federal government, that those are our options. And so we are in the process of gearing up to make that happen. In some instances, I believe it's already starting to happen, but that's the movement we're going towards. So you should be hearing from your children's service providers or the administrator that oversees your child's caseload in the coming days. I have a question about the 8th grade Washington, D.C. trip. What's going on with that? Still up in the air. That has not been canceled yet. I will be shocked if it isn't, but I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that everything returns to normal and kids can go, because I know they look forward to that trip and it's such a great trip. But really, if we're being realistic, it's probably unlikely to happen. And as soon as a decision is made, we will be certain to communicate it out. As you might guess too, with a lot of these trips, whether it's 8th grade trip, whether it's the New York City Spanish trip, whether it's our Nashville trip, we're working incredibly hard trying to get full refunds. Many of them have no refund policies, but a lot of these companies have been great, recognizing this is a pandemic situation, this is unusual. And so we're trying to work through that. And so, please stay tuned on that. Plans for kindergarten registration, that's a great one. It's actually, we've answered that in our FAQ on our website. And so please go to our website and check out the FAQ section. You'll see something on there. But Amy Bennett is one of our clerical staff members at the primary school. Give her a call and she can walk you through how you go about UPK and kindergarten registration. And so she'll take care of you. And I think I just answered the question about the 8th grade DC trip and whether people will be refunded. Right, and so a question about moving on academically. Again, so if we're not grading homework currently, how do we determine whether or not a student moves on academically? Again, what I can assure you and I can promise you is we won't allow this time of closure to hurt students academically. We will figure out a process where that doesn't happen. We'll only allow it to benefit students. So I had a teacher ask earlier today in another forum, she had a student who was struggling, but actually during this closure, he's turned it around. He's doing really well academically and wants to somehow give him credit for that, because it could be the difference between passing and failing. And my response was, always err on the side of the student. Let's find a way to make that count. But ultimately, we won't let this not count, or we won't let this hurt them academically. So we'll have to figure out how we're going to look at academics and their grades. Again, we have a first quarter and a second quarter grade. We have a third quarter grade up until the progress report. We have progress report grades. And then I'm hoping we'll have something at the end of the year. So we're really going to have to kind of look at their body of work, all of the stuff that they've completed, and determine whether or not they're as equally ready to move on as their peers. And we fully understand kids are going to be coming back to us all over the place where they are academically, and we'll have to do a lot to kind of fill in some gaps, some learning gaps along the way. We completely understand that, and some of that might mean just next year we need to revisit some of the content from the previous year. I mean, those are our realities right now. This is certainly unusual times. Right. So another question about speech therapy. Some other districts have approved some suppliers of teletherapy. So there are organizations out there that we could contract with. We've actually looked at one when we had a shortage of speech teachers to do some teletherapy, and we contracted with them last year. And so that's a real possibility. If our speech teachers can't keep up with the caseload, we could look at some virtual speech therapy programs that are out there. They're strong programs. And there's something we could leverage if we needed to. Great question about, do you think there'll be talk of closing schools? Some states have actually closed for the rest of the year already. Anything's possible. Certainly we've heard that rumor at the state level that, will we return at all this year? It's possible. I can't say that it might not happen. What the governor actually said in one of his conferences this week is that we're probably 14 to 21 days out from the peak. I think when he said that, he was more referencing downstate. So if you think about that, maybe we're 21 to 28 days out from the peak. And if that's the case, that pushes us out quite a ways, probably to the end of April, when we hit the peak, and then hopefully the numbers start improving. And then maybe mid to end of May, maybe things start returning to normal, or maybe it's before that. I really don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, and if I had a magic 8 ball, I'd shake it and give you an answer now, but it probably wouldn't be right. But it's possible, Renee. It could happen. Great point. So Schoology, you don't have to go into Schoology from a Chromebook. You can actually do it from any device, absolutely. An iPad, if you have a desktop computer or laptop at home, you can go into it on any device. So great point if your Chromebook isn't working. So I see the question about the senior and junior ball. What's the likelihood? I really don't know at this point. I think we have to kind of see what happens with the governor and whether or not we're back, and when we're back, and when it can happen. If we may need to postpone it and push it out further, and maybe there's a way to make it happen just at a different time. We're looking at all of that stuff pretty concurrently. We're kind of looking at dates, and if we had to push it off to here or there, I think we just need to be flexible, and these things are important to kids. They're memories that they'll carry with them forever, and so us trying to find a way for them to have those memories and to have those experiences, I think is important. And so that is something we're looking at very regularly. Another question about canceling for the entire year, like other states. I think I've answered that. IEP goals, services. I talked a little bit about that, but what I didn't talk about was CSE meetings. So when the decision was made to close until April 13th, again, the governor's saying April 1st, and that may very well be. But what we decided at that time was to hold off on CSE meetings and postpone them and reschedule them. If we're out longer than the April 13th date, what our office at CSE is already planning, they submitted a document to us today, and it's very well done, is that they will start holding the CSE meetings virtually over the phone, perhaps over Zoom. We need to look at some of the security system of Zoom, because we certainly don't want to compromise any confidential information by using Zoom if that's not the right product, but certainly telephones, and to hold CSE meetings that way. If a parent refuses and doesn't want to hold it virtually, they do have a right to ask to wait until we can hold it in person. And then so that way current services and structures would remain in place. The hard part also is evaluation of students. If students haven't been evaluated, some have, which is great, but some haven't, and we can't do the evaluation at this time. So we just kind of have to hold a little bit there. It's nice. Someone checking in on the middle school student that had the COVID-19. Doing great. The day that the news broke, in fact, was feeling well enough to be out in the back yard playing catch with a lacrosse ball with their sibling. So last I knew was feeling much better. And so that's the thing with this COVID-19 is typically if you're healthy, it's like the flu, just it's worse. But you kind of go through that cycle and come out of it. It's the folks that have the compromised immune system or a little bit older that really seems to be taking a stronger hold on. That doesn't mean the youth, you're invincible. You all still could get this. So you have to be cautious and practice social distancing because you could get it, or you could become a carrier of it and pass it on to a loved one who maybe does have a compromised immune system. And certainly none of us want to be in a situation where we cause a loved one to become ill. Oh, I'm assuming this is a student asking, can we go to school all summer long? They just miss school so much. They want to come to school all summer long. Actually kidding. They're worried about their summer break being cut down. We don't anticipate summer break being changed. It should be the same length. At least that's what the state is telling us at this point. Same with April break. So even if we come back, as the governor is saying, April 1st, he is saying we could still have April break unless we're short of the 180 days. That shouldn't impact us right now. We should be fine. And if we are forced to come back earlier based on the governor's ruling, then we would still have our April break. So that's just something to keep in mind. CA idle. At this point, still going on as planned, but again, I would say like anything else, it's probably unlikely. We've had some conversation about do we make CA idle some kind of a virtual experience where kids submit themselves performing, and then we compile it into kind of this video montage where everybody can see everybody's their performances. So, that's not happening yet, but those are some conversations we're having that if things get canceled, can we do things differently and still give the students the experience? Another DC trip question I've already answered. Just answered the spring break question that as far as I'm concerned right now, spring break, it would still happen. So someone joined a little bit late asking, what is the realistic anticipated return date? Gosh, I wish I could tell you. I really do. If I'm just going off of the information and the knowledge I know and just kind of looking at projections, I've been saying for about a week now, mid to late May might be more likely a possibility. But hey, maybe it's April 1st. I guess we have to kind of wait and see. Tennis courts around the district. Can we open up tennis courts? I love playing tennis and I would love to. The hard part is it's hard for us to condone people gathering. And we know if our fields were open, our goals were out, we've locked everything up, we know people would start gathering. And we love that, but at the same time, we can't provide access for folks to gather. There are community courts, I think, that are open. But again, if you're going to do something like that, have it be you, one other partner, and stay on your own sides of the court. Really stay distanced from one another and be careful. Use common sense. All of this doesn't mean you can't go outside. Like I said, you can't go outside and walk or go for a jog with somebody, but just keep your distance. I do know, I'm a golfer. I love golf. I know in the Rochester area, pretty much all the golf courses reopened today. And they put some fairly stringent guidelines down about distancing. And so, we're seeing a value being placed on being outside in the open air, but also on an emphasis on making sure you keep that distance from one another. I don't know if it's the right move. I'm not an expert, but I'm just reporting what I've heard. Regents exams, are they a go? The governor was asked that today. His team indicated that they're looking at that, but they don't have an answer yet. We did share that New York State assessments 3 through 8, ELA and math, have been canceled. Grade 4 and 8 science, New York State assessments have been canceled. A variety of things have been canceled. or happening in a different format, but we have no word on Regents yet. I know they're looking at it, and we expect to maybe hear something any day, but I'll be honest with you, I think if we do return, even if it's as late as end of May, I won't be shocked if the Regents exams go forward and then they look to try to curve it in some format. But as soon as we know anything on that, I'll let you know. I think I already answered the DC trip and a refund. We're working really hard to get those refunds if things get canceled. But again, a lot of those have no refund clauses, but most travel companies have been very understanding and they want to do the right thing. The thing to understand about that is the federal government has offered financial assistance, economic assistance to programs like that. And so a lot of them have applied for economic assistance from the federal government. And if they receive the assistance, then they can relinquish the money that we had spent or other schools had spent. That's really it's a little bit of a waiting game. Someone's just asking about when the governor will make a decision on the 1st of April. I don't know. It was asked. I encourage you to watch his press conferences. They're pretty much every day at noon on all the major stations. They last about an hour, hour and a half. I watch them every single time because I just want to stay informed. We don't know. We know they're exploring it, but we're not sure what he's going to do there. So as soon as I hear something, we'll put it out to the community. Yeah, I don't think at this point that there's any talk about school going into the summer months to make up days that are missed during the school year. Anything could happen, but nobody's really talking about that at this point, and hopefully it stays that way. A piece about kids, families having a choice to keep their kids at home if we return, for example, on April 1st, if families feel like it's not safe to return. That's a really difficult question for me to answer. If school has to be in session and a student isn't going to school and there's not a legal reason for that, I'm really mandated to report that. It's not a fight I want to get in, I'll be honest, because I understand where families are coming from. This is a scary time. And so, that's something I'm not looking forward to having to address, to be honest with you. But, it will be an issue. It'll also be an issue with our staff members who maybe have compromised immune systems that aren't comfortable coming back to work. That's something we talked about earlier today in the other one. So kindergarten, someone is just sharing that maybe the kindergarten registration hasn't been figured out yet, capital letters yet. We'll get it figured out, so stay tuned. But again, I think calling the primary school office, Amy Bennett is the clerical in there, she'll be a good resource to let you know where we are with that. But UPK, that is definitely where you call. The end of the third quarter is next Friday. Will the third quarter be extended? Likely not. Likely not. We're going to have to come up with some kind of a process to give a fair grade for that quarter. Again, it might be pass-fail. It might be a combination of your progress report, maybe some other quarter grades. Could be a number of things. Right now, you're likely not going to get a report card for the third quarter anytime soon. It's really hard to make a decision on that until we know when and if we're coming back. Some people are talking about school being closed, and I just want to make the distinction that school is actually not closed. Our buildings are closed. School should still be happening. And we're looking to figure out what that will look like if the time gets extended, how instruction can still happen for 100% of our students. Our counselors, our building administration, and our data specialists worked really hard over the last few days developing analytics that we can go in and see how frequently students are logging into Schoology. And then we can take those analytics and starting today, actually, and maybe actually a few days ago, counselors and administrators have been calling home for folks that we're not sure that they're getting on and engaging in the academics, to just try to determine what are the barriers. Are you confused? Is it an internet connection issue? Are you just doing it on the paper and we don't know? And so, we're really trying to get an idea and wrap our heads around giving everybody, all 100% of our students, the support they need, and same with our staff, giving them the support they need so they can move content forward should this closure go beyond this the original expectation. Ninth grade fundraiser and food delivery orders, please stay tuned. We'll let you know as soon as we can. I know some people are probably planning on some of that food for some family meals and things like that. Most of them were like pie orders and things like that, if I'm not mistaken. I know we ordered some. So stay tuned. As soon as we know it's safe to distribute and we have a process to do that, we will do that. I already answered the regents. Boy, these kids really want to go into summer. They want to, actually, maybe the sentiment's the opposite of that. No, we don't believe your summer will be reduced. We hope not, but anything's possible. Yeah. So again, I'm not sure if this question came in a little late, but it really just wonders, have we expressed the importance of being socially responsible and social distancing and things like that? Those are the first two slides that we talked about. I've referenced it a number of times. So please, please, please flatten the curve, social distance, and stay healthy or get healthy. And so I know a lot of kids really want to come back to school. Staff definitely want to. And, you know, we're missing out on pretty significant things here. So I would say the way that's going to happen the quickest is if New York State adheres to this and really does socially distance themselves from one another and hopefully flattens the curve so we can come back sooner. Volunteer opportunities. Thank you for asking that. We called for volunteers to help hand out meals between the 11 and 1. It filled up immediately from community and staff. We're delivering about 15 meals a day. If that number grows, we may need some volunteers to do that. So please stay tuned. I would also say consider, if you have a means to do it, to donate to The Spot. The Spot is a great organization in our community that's providing so much for our families of just food in the lines of food or just essential human needs. So that's a great organization. And then tomorrow, in my communication to everybody, I'll echo what our board president, Jeannie Grimm, kind of, she wrote a letter to the editor and emailed our staff today about the whole concept of, if you have a means, to buy gift cards to local restaurants that are open, and then donate those gift cards here during our meal drop-off between 11 and 1. We'll collect them and then redistribute them to families that are coming to collect their meal, their lunch and their breakfast. And so it does a couple things. It perhaps gives a dinner gift card meal to a family that really could use it, perhaps out of work or just needing other venues to have a meal. Also helps our local restaurants that have just been so generous over the years. So that's another concept. Look out for that in the communication tomorrow, a little more information on that. Yeah, really about what will happen if we open on the 1st and the student is ill or has a compromised immune system. What will happen then if they don't come to school? It's a great question. You know, I really am hopeful the governor will extend this a bit longer so we can make informed decisions, but it's a great question. I think ultimately we would probably look for a doctor's note and then have to figure out how we do academics in the meantime in that situation if a student has a compromised immune system. But stay tuned on that. Another Regents question, summer question, SAT testing. So at this time right now, SAT testing is on hold. Actually, we had SAT tests given the weekend before the closure occurred, but that was the last one for now. Another Regents question we've already answered. Yeah, so if we decided to close for the rest of the school year, regardless if the state didn't sanction it, there would be some pretty drastic sanctions put on us, financial and other. And so, you know, that's one of the things when we're dependent on state aid and federal aid, like all school districts are in New York State. There's this whole balance between, you know, really kind of complying with the state, but you know, what we are trying to do is advocate and push back for the state to make the decision that we believe is best. But at the end of the day, when the governor comes in and says, I'm overriding a local decision, he has the authority to do that. So will staff continue to be paid? We are paying staff, all staff at this time, and we don't anticipate that changing. But we do have an agreement that all staff is being paid, and they're working from home or on call to be called in. Some are working here, very few though. So yeah, your CSE meeting that was canceled will be rescheduled. So AP exams, let me try to think here. I know IB off the top of my head, AP. So the question is, what will happen to AP exams and seniors who don't have a chance for another year? There was a communication, and I'm afraid what I'm going to share with you right now is specific to IB, not AP. I might be getting them confused. What I'd recommend you do is ask your AP teacher. He or she will have that information for you for sure. There was some kind of provision, I believe, in there for AP. So far, yeah, we're still planning on graduation date as is. Requirements like economics and participation in government, PE, again, the closure is not going to penalize any of you. We will make sure that you'll get credit for those. If we were to finish the year like this, we will start ramping up the new content work if the year were to be closed and grading it, but we wouldn't necessarily let you not graduate because you weren't in a seat in school for economics or participation in government. I might have just gotten a text about AP. Let me see. And I only have a few more minutes. I'm going to try to get through as many of these as possible. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. AP exams are actually being done remotely. They'll be 45 minutes in length, and it'll only cover the content that you were taught when you were in session. It can be done on your Chromebook. It could be done on a smartphone. It could be done on an iPad. So I had forgotten about that. Thank you. A couple people gave me that. Someone just said that just thanks for all this information. It's been really helpful. That was the same sentiment I had when we did this with the staff. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to do this weekly. And so I'll go through our updated state of the state, that slideshow that I did at the beginning. I'm not going to reinvent it, to be honest with you. I'm just going to kind of update some of the slides. And then I will go right into the Q&A. And maybe there won't be as many questions the more we do this, but I know I'm not going to get to everybody's questions here tonight because I'm running out of time, but just know that my plan is, I have about 2 more minutes. My plan is we'll do this weekly if it's a venue that people find to be helpful. If you don't and people start tuning out, then we won't continue them, but we'll definitely do that. Just more Regents questions or going into the summer months with school. Again, I've already answered those. This one is a meetings with counselors for schedule for next year. They're actually doing it on the phone now. So that's already begun. And so expect the phone call soon about that. I've already answered Regents. I didn't mention, I'm actually recording this. And so hopefully it uploads to the cloud properly. And what we plan to do is actually take it and put it on our website. So, and on our website, we have an FAQ section. So every time we get some really commonly asked questions, we just keep updating it. If you're not going on our website, you're really missing out on a lot of information. Just go to that health related box, click on it, and you'll see everything. It's all specific to COVID and where we are right now. Oh, so yeah, the future sessions, so tonight I added the music. I got really fancy. Actually, what I hope to do in the future ones, I've reached out to the assistant superintendents. So one's in charge of finances, one's in charge of instruction, one's in charge of personnel, that maybe we would host one of these sessions together and they would be panelists with me. Also want to do this with the principals, and so they'll all be a panelist with me, and so they can answer some of your specific questions and you get to see them. And then thought about doing this with some board members and having maybe Jeannie, who's our president, and Cheryl, who's our vice president, be co-panelists with me. And so, yeah, we would definitely like to mix it up if this is a valuable venue and do that. one thing I didn't talk about too much, and I should have, is finances. The governor talked about today how difficult finances are going to be this year. That's expected, but it's going to make some very difficult decisions moving forward. So you may not know, the governor gives his budget in January. When we build a school budget, we actually go off the governor's numbers to begin with, and we know typically the governor's numbers are they're kind of like the basement, and then by the time the actual budget comes out, it's a little bit higher, not a lot, but a little bit higher, and so it helps a bit. And so we started building the budget off the governor's numbers, knowing that it is really, really tight. This is a tough budget year. Today he shared, without surprise, that his numbers aren't even the floor. It's going to be much less than that. They're actually looking at budgeting quarterly. I can't even wrap my head around what that means for schools. We have fixed expenses, and I don't even know what a quarterly budget would look like for a school district. This is going to be really, really difficult. And so I just share that, it's reminiscent. I was an administrator back in 08, 09 when the recession occurred. My first year as a middle school principal, had to lay off folks, and it was awful. I'm not saying we're there, but what I'm saying is, this is going to be a similarly challenging time. And so, we're looking at that day by day. And so just be aware that this is going to be a tough budget, and we're going to have to figure out how we do what's best for kids. A question about, has anybody tested positive in the school system? I'm not going to know that likely anymore. The county has decided that they're really only going to just give the overall county number. If a staff member or a student is tested positive and they could have exposed somebody because they were working here during the time that they're contagious, I guess I'll say, they would call me on that. But at this point, we've been closed for so long that would really only apply to a very few of us that are here. We were talking a handful of people. We have 2 people working in the kitchen. We have 2 to 3 people volunteering to handing out meals, me, and then a small rotation in the business office where folks are working an hour a day on a rotation, and the principals are kind of managing some of the packages and mails and mail, and some of our custodial group, maintenance group, a little bit, and then our head of facilities is here every day. But it's just a real small number. Okay, I think I've gone over by 2 minutes. I gave you a free extra 2 minutes tonight. So everyone just go be with your family, get healthy. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. It appears as though this was helpful, and we'll continue to do these sessions. So thank you all. Stay safe, stay positive. We've got this. Together we've got this. We can do this together. So proud of all of you and inspired by all of you. So thank you. Have a great night.